criticism.
Let's hop into our next segment without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen. Who is on thin ice?
Yeah, so this one was a weird one because we were talking back and forth about who to put on thin ice, and we talked about thieves a little bit, but at the same time, thieves are thieves, and I don't see a world where thieves are actually in any type of trouble at all.
No.
I mean, like, thieves are allowed to have a bad tournament. It's not a team that I'm like, oh, they need to make a change, or
We've seen it happen before with thieves as well.
Yeah,
so when we were talking about putting thieves on thin ice, which we definitely did, they got a top 8 performance, which not the end of the world. We've seen them do way worse last year, and then they come back. They end up going back to back to win your world championship.
Yeah,
I'm not worried about that team at all.
But I am worried about this team now.
Yeah,
because this one's confusing me.
It is a little bit confusing. Let's throw up the graphic. We've got your New York Subliners on thin ice for this week.
Yeah, very.
And I love
weird
these
one.
guys.
Yeah,
I hate to put them on thin ice because they know how I feel about them. I love these guys.
Yeah.
Got Kiz.
I mean, they have one of the best players in the world of Hydra, and many have talked about him being the best player in the world. I think as of this moment, he's not in that conversation right now.
He's still
mostly
close.
He's close, but due to like the team's overall performance, it's just hard to actually put him in like a number 1 spot, especially when players like Pred are playing like they are. Shotzzy has a tournament like that. Cellium still playing like he is. Obviously one of the best players in the world, undoubtedly, but I think the team's performance is very odd because they obviously come out and win Major 1. I don't think many people had them winning Major 1, so that was kind of a surprise.
I don't think. Well, the teams that were scrimming knew they were very good at Major 1.
Yeah.
Like when we played them before Major 1, we knew that they were ahead. But I don't think the community really knew how good they were.
Well, the Major 2 comes around, right? And they have this disaster of a travel day. They show up super late. They barely get any sleep. So we kind of all give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? This team, they just won Major 1. Obviously, they're still a powerhouse team. Some unfortunate travel day bullshit comes up, and we sort of write Major 2 off. We fast forward to Major 3, and now we can no longer write it off.
Yeah.
It starts to become alarming because the roster on paper and the roster at their ceiling, one of the best teams in the world. I mean, they were the best team in the world at Major 1. But they come out and they place top 12, last at Major 3.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about their online split just to kind of paint the picture for them. They end up winning their first match against Rocker in a round 11 fashion, which was their first round matchup at the Major as well.
What's weird about that one is at the time we're like, damn, 2 top teams facing off. Rocker just placed top 3. New York got upset. But still, we still valued them highly. And then knowing what we know now, to barely beat a Rocker team in the form they were this past split was actually not good. Like, they win 3-2 round 11 against a team who played like my ass.
We didn't know that then, though.
All stage long.
Yeah, Rocker, right there, that looked like an impressive win for New York. They end up winning a round 11 online. They lost to them on land round 11, their first round, which is kind of insane.
Mm-hmm.
And then New York comes out and beats them, in their first match. And they got top 3 at the last Majors. So we're like, okay, New York looks like they're back to themselves.
Yeah, they're back.
Yeah, they're back. Moving forward, they 3-0 Florida. So we're like, okay, New York looks good. They're back in form.
Yeah.
Moving forward, they get 3-0'd by Ultra, which, knowing now what we know, not really too crazy, seeing as Ultra are your most recent winners. And then their last 2 matches, they 3-0 us.
Yeah.
Which was not as impressive at the time because we were still kind of in that growing phase. We didn't really have too many matches under our belts. And then they end up getting 3-0'd by Surge.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Surge New York matchup was the only one that, I think that kind of made sense. Because, like, we were talking about Surge, and Surge, when they're at their peak, they can beat any single team, especially in respawns. The Optic match, like you said, was a weird one because at the time, Optic were not looking that great, right? Like, very inconsistent. You'd see one team one day, a different team the next. But either way, like, a decent online split. Like, they didn't go 0-5, they didn't go 1-4. It wasn't the worst performance, so I think everybody kind of assumed that New York would head into the Major and make some noise. I don't think anybody saw them as the same championship team that we saw after Major 1, but still a team that can come out and place top 4, top 6 easily and beat some of the top teams, and they don't. So we can compare some of their stats from online to LAN. I think what stands out for me most is the S&D. So Hydra online in the qualifiers had a 1.43 in search. He had a 0.92 at the major.
Which is very, very... I mean, the sample size is so small at the major.
Correct, but
that's all we got.
Exactly.
So
Kismet has a 1.14 in search online. He drops a 0.43 at the event.
That's tough.
Priesta 0.9 to a 0.5. Skyz a 0.84 to a 1.15. So Cedar Skyz is the only player with a positive KD in search at the tournament, and it's just very weird to have a team like this on thin ice. And I guess go ahead. Sorry.
I want to talk about something that their search woes. I mean, search and destroy was probably their weakest mode. They've been talking about that. They were very good at hardpoint, very good at control. They've always kind of struggled in search and destroy. They lose to Toronto and Florida.
Yeah,
but they do go that are good search.
I mean, they go 4-2 online in search, so they're at least looking a little better, right? They have a positive record, and then on LAN they just can't put it together.
Yeah. I think that New York, even though we have them on thin ice, I think it's kind of the same as the Rocker team that we saw. I think this team, I don't think we raise any alarms yet. I think if they go into this next qualifier and either have a bad online qualifier or a bad major, then we might need to start raising some alarms and talking about what's really going on with that team. But right now, I still think they're...
Also, I don't see... Okay, so here's sort of how I base roster changes. I look at a team like New York from player to player, and I think about players. First off, let me just preface, I don't think this team should look at a change right now.
No,
but
absolutely
just if they were, I'm not sure what players you look at that can replace any of these players.
Yeah.
Like, who do you replace? Hydra doesn't move anywhere.
I don't think you can make a change on this team at all.
Exactly. I mean, especially when I think most of the top challenger players like Ghosty already get picked up. The problem is when you get to this point of the year, most of the top challenger players are either signed as substitutes or somehow on starting rosters. Then you're like, okay, we can explore a trade. But the problem in the CDL with trades is that one team always feels like they're losing the trade.
Not happening mid-season.
It never feels like a winning trade for both teams, because usually it's a struggling team and then like a mid to top team that is being pursued for a player. So but it's very, very rare that we see trades. But New York, like you said, I don't want to sound the alarms yet.
No, yeah, and I want to talk about one more.
It's getting scary.
I want to talk about one more thing really quickly. We see their hardpoint. I want to point out their 3 hardpoint losses on LAN. They scored 222 points, 244 points, and 231 points.
I mean, they're not incompetent. I mean, it's still a team that are going to make it close, but I don't give a fuck about this argument anymore of a team getting close, because then it reminds me of a team like London who they're always close.
London, I mean, should have beat us.
Correct.
Let's be honest.
They probably should have beat Optic based on the form that they were showing and
I mean,
the momentum they had.
They were up
4-1 last map. Is that what it was?
No, they were up 3-0.
3-0, sorry.
That might have turned into a 4-1. I don't remember, but they were up 100 points on the Mercado hardpoint. They threw back-to-back maps against us, and then that allows us to get going. Yeah, so we can't talk about almost anymore, because almost just means
we're at the point of the year. We're at the point of the year now where either you're winning or you're not. If you score 244 points and you lose the map, sure, obviously, I mean, you made some good plays, but you didn't win the map. So I'm not gonna sit here and gas a team because they're close. It's one thing to be close. It's one thing to close it out and win.
Yeah.
So sure, I hope it's close. This is not a roster that should be getting 100-point club, but no. I don't tip my hat to them being close.
Yeah. So New York's on thin ice. I think that they still have a little bit of ice under them, though. I don't think this team makes a change at all.
And they're good friends. Like, I think
they're major champions this year. They have all the tools necessary to be a good team. We've seen it. They're champions.
I mean, I'll play devil's advocate and just talk about the league as a whole. I mean, it's a very competitive league. So these type of things will happen. A top team will slump. They'll perform under, I guess, the caliber that most people expect from them.
Yeah.
But this is a roster you don't change. Just like Rocker, like, you give these players a little bit more time. And if the woes continue,
then
you talk about, okay, what can we do? Like, who's available? Are there trades? What challengers players playing well? But right now, they are on thin ice because they haven't fallen through the ice yet.
No, they're just struggling.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens to a lot of teams. It happens to pretty much every team besides FaZe. Yep. I mean, FaZe, their struggles are top 3.
Yeah.
So,
Christ.
And we talk about their control a little bit. We don't even talk about it because it's not worth mentioning. They've always been good at control. They have 1.11 in control still. That is not their issue. But New York's on thin ice. Let's move on to something a little more lighthearted, perhaps.